Hello, welcome to Zim Capture. I'm inventor Dan Zen. And Zim at zimjs.com is an open source framework to code interactive media on the HTML canvas using JavaScript and Create.js. In this capture, we're going to take a look at how we can customize components. We saw in a previous capture the variety of Zim components, but those were just the standard default component without any changes. Now we're going to take a look at how we can pass parameters into the component in two different ways. One is in a traditional way in the order of parameters, and a second way in which we pass a single configuration object. And that was introduced in Zim Duo, so we call it the Zim Duo technique. Now let's take a look at some code. All right, and we shall make a button. This is the Zim fit template using the Zim frame module. So var button, button is equal to a new Zim dot bouton, like so. That's the standard one. And we will add that to the stage, button dot center on the stage. You can also say stage dot add child button and then position it. And let's view it in a browser. There it is. That's the standard button. And we can adjust through parameters. We can adjust what the button says, the size of the button, the corner. So we can say set the corner to 0 and have it be square, the drop shadow there, the roll color, the color, etc. So the way we see what things we can do is we open up a new window here, a new tab, go to Zim, pizzazz, and click the docs, and type in button. And here they all are. So these are the parameters that we can apply to the button: the width, the height, the label, the color, roll color, border thickness, corner, shadow color, shadow blur, hit padding that can expand the button for mobile, make it easier to press, a gradient on the backing, a gloss on the backing. Whether it has a flat bottom, you can make tabs then. A custom backing and a custom roll backing. Roll persist, which is when you press down on it and roll off the button, does it still look like it's rolled on? And that would be good for a button for a slider, for instance. An icon, so a custom icon and a roll icon, and both the roll backing, and icon and roll icon, those use Zim Pizzazz, which have a bunch of custom shapes for that. There's whether the button's a toggle button, so you could press on it and have it change either its text or its icon or its backing. Roll toggle and a toggle event. So does it toggle when you mouse down on it, or does it toggle when you actually click on it? All right, now what I usually do, you can read about those, by the way. You can read about those down here, what all those parameters do, and just like any of these. So there's a button, there's a label. The label's got a bunch of parameters. Here's, what else is there? Checkboxes, radio buttons, panes, windows, etc. And they all have a bunch of parameters. And the same format here where it tells you what all those parameters are. All right, so where do we get to? What I'd like to do is just copy these. Sometimes I do this. I'll copy that and then come back into the documentation here and paste them just up above so we have access to them. All right, so the first one is the width. How about we make it 200? We'll customize one here, and a height 180, and we will say custom. So there, keep it simple to start. We're customizing what the label says. Now we can pass in a Zim label there if we want to change the color or the font, that kind of stuff. So we save that up, view it in a browser, and there is our custom button. Okay. What if we wanted corners to be 0? Here's what we'd have to go through. We would say comma, and then we'll just use the default color still. So to use a default parameter, we just say null. A roll color, border color will also be null. Null and null. We'll use the defaults there. Border thickness, null. And finally, we get to the corner and we say 0. Okay, so as you can see, that's a little bit annoying because look, what if we wanted to get right to, say, put in a backing? We'd have to pass in a lot of nulls to the point where that's really not manageable. But we'll show you a trick in just a sec. So let's save this and see if it works. Oh, look at that. Nice square corners. Cool. So the trick is to use a configuration object, not a configuration, a configuration object, a single configuration object. So let me show you how that works. We copy this and we'll comment that out. Now, an object looks like this. That's an object literal, like so. So a single configuration object would look just like that. Ignore all that stuff. So that would be passing in a single configuration object, and then what we do is we put a property name, so a prop, followed by a colon, followed by some value, comma, another property, colon, and another value, etc. All right, so that would, and these properties would have the same names as these things up here, and we can do them in any order. So we could just say corner right here, we could say corner, colon, 0. And that could be the only property we pass in. And that would give us a default button, but with a corner of 0. Do you want to see? Let's comment that out for now. So we save that, view it in the browser. There it is, default press button, but look, the corner's 0. Okay, so let's just back up a little bit there. We have these values already, and what I'll do is just convert them to a configuration object. So we better put that one at the end, just so we remember. We don't need any of the nulls, and that's what's nice. So we won't need any of those nulls. But now the slight drawback is each one of these needs to have a property name applied to it. So this is the width, colon. This is the height, colon. This is the label, colon. And this is the corner, colon. All right, so now we have a single configuration object with 4 properties: the width, the height, the label, and the corner. And we can add any more that we want. Now I usually do keep them in the order, but you don't really have to. And what's nice about this is these are pretty easy to remember. It's sort of certainly more easy to remember than knowing how many nulls we have to put in. We always have to check that pretty well. Okay, so let's save this up and see what happened. Where'd we go? Browser. There, look. Custom, cool, huh? Okay. Now that can be applied to any of the well, actually any of the classes. So all of the build module classes, the components, the shapes, etc. And also to most, if not almost all, of the Zim functions in the create module. Those are the methods. So let's just open up a browser and see what we mean by that. So if we pop into the Zim, sorry, I closed our documents there, go into the docs, and let's scroll down here, whoop, past the code to the create module. So all of these as well, or many of them, for instance, there's the animate. We've got target, object, time, ease, call, params, wait, loop, etc. So all those can use the Zim Duo method, which is good because there's a darn lot of them in there. And like I said, that makes this technique of passing in properties as parameters manageable. You know, we don't have to apply all those nulls to get to later properties. Right? So all of these use, the only time that we don't is if certain things are required already. Like you've got to type them all in anyway, and there might only be 3 of them, then we don't bother applying the Zim Duo technique, but it says in the documentation that it's applied. Let's try another one just quickly. How about a dial? So we'll grab the dial's parameters here, like that. And you see under parameters it says supports Duo, parameters or single object with properties below. Okay, so you can make a single object with any of these properties right here. All right, and a dial. So we'll make a dial. Var dial is equal to, and we will dial that to the stage, and we will say Zim dial, and then we'll get rid of all of these things and all of that, and we'll just paste the parameters for the dial. So a min, a max, a step, a width, a color. Well, we might want to make it big, so a width of, say, 300, and comma, and a color of, say, frame dot green. Now that's just any color you can, could have just said green like that, but frame dot green is a special green that matches the Zim green in a sense that's stored on the frame object. So I sometimes use those. Okay, so there we've got a bigger dial. It's green. We've added it to the stage in the center. We save it. We look at it in the browser. Whole big dial. Okay, now this dial uses ticks like that, and we may not want the ticks. So we could, I believe it's called use ticks. Yeah. So in here anywhere, right at the beginning, like I said, I usually keep them roughly in order, like use ticks comes later. So use ticks, colon, false. And that turns the ticks off. So if you look at that in the browser, no ticks. But it's still going snap, 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 or indeed the dial you can pull that way as well, or click. All right, so how do we get rid of the snap, snap, snaps? Well, that's the step. So if we say step colon 0 like that, comma, this dial will have no steps. Now, this is starting to go off the screen, so what I often do is I'll just stack them like so. Isn't that nice? So much like we would stack our CSS, for instance. There we go. So you just keep the bracket there and then the bracket there, and we can stack them here and say all of the properties that we want. So we save that, view it in the browser. There's a dial that has a smooth value, so no steps. Okay. Now that dial stops at the top. Well, there's something for that as well. Indicator, inner circle, inner use ticks, inner ticks, ticks, limit. So limit false, comma, limit colon false. And you get used to these. There, so no limit. Now it wraps around. Alrighty, that's a view at how we can apply parameters to customize our components in all sorts of wondrous ways. We can also apply those parameters in two different manners. One, the traditional parameters where the order matters, but we just specify the values in a certain order. And the other, the configuration object, what we call the Zim Duo technique, where we pass in a single configuration object or an object with properties that match the parameter names and then the values next to that. I'm inventor Dan Zen. Have a great day and look forward to future captures here at zimjs.com. Ciao.